We are living in a time unlike any other generation before us. For nearly 2,000 years, believers read Revelation 13 and wondered how it could ever happen. How could one system possibly control buying and selling across the entire world? How could a single authority monitor billions of people across continents, languages, and governments? How could every single person be identified and tracked, and then cut off from buying or selling if they refuse to go along with it? Revelation 13, verses 16 to 17. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. In the first century, these verses sounded unimaginable. In the Middle Ages, it sounded impossible. Even 100 years ago, it sounded unrealistic. How would you even track every transaction? How could you enforce something worldwide without instant communication? For most of human history, it didn't even sound scary. It just sounded impossible. But now, for the first time in history, the tools to do exactly that are no longer theoretical. They exist. We are not just in a world where Revelation 13 is conceivable. We are moving in a direction where the infrastructure to support it is being quietly and steadily built. And recently, one of the most influential voices in global development spoke openly about a system that connects identity, banking, agriculture, health records, and government benefits into a unified digital framework. Listen to what he describes.
Another place that India leads, but there's a lot more that all of you can be involved in driving forward, is this digital public infrastructure. No country is more able to take government benefits and get them out efficiently and effectively to their citizens than India. You would have expected rich countries or others to do that, but in fact, they did not. And so that basic structure that starts with identity and bank accounts and payments is just foundational. And as part of this visit, I'm now seeing how that foundation is being built out in agriculture with profiles of farmers to understand what they need and give them advice, built out with health records so that we can help people not only with infectious diseases, but the challenge that's coming in the future with the growth of the non-communicable diseases being a huge thing. And that digital public infrastructure will help us with these climate problems. I was in Odisha yesterday, and what they showed is that they've registered the farmers and registered what type of crops they grow and what land they own. They literally have a control center. When you walk in, you think, wow, this is agriculture, but you've got a command center and maps and people doing queries and sending out messages. And so that all starts, with an Aadhaar identity, listing those farmers, getting the information, making sure it's up to date.
So, let's ask the question that many are thinking, but few are willing to say out loud. Who appointed Bill Gates as the world's health overseer? Who voted for Bill Gates to be the world's doctor? Who made him the architect of digital identity systems across nations? When did unelected individuals begin shaping global health policies, agricultural databases, financial rails, and identity infrastructure at a scale that affects entire populations? No one voted for him. And this is the same man who has quietly become the largest private owner of farmland in the United States. Through a web of investments and agricultural holdings, Bill Gates has accumulated vast acreage across multiple states.
Along with China's land grabs, Microsoft founder Bill Gates is the largest private owner of American farmland. Gates alone holds over 275,000 acres across 19 states.
Now, pause and think about that. one of the most influential voices in global health policy, a major advocate for digital identity frameworks, a key figure in agricultural development initiatives across Africa and Asia, and at the same time, the largest private farmland owner in America. Land is not just dirt. Land is food. Land is supply chains. Land is influence over what is grown, how it is grown, and who controls the distribution of it. Throughout history, control of land has always equaled power. Empires were built on it. Wars were fought over it. Nations rose and fell because of it. Even podcasters are concerned about Bill Gates owning so much farmland. Revelation 13 describes a system built on leverage, and that no man might buy or sell. That is economic enforcement. That is access control. That is conditional participation in society itself. For most of history, governments could punish, imprison, or tax, but they could not digitally erase your ability to function. They could not switch you off with a keystroke. They could not instantly freeze your transactions across an entire financial ecosystem. But now we are building systems where buying and selling are no longer physical exchanges. They are digital permissions. There's something happening right now called debanking. It's when a bank decides you're too much of a risk and they shut your account down. No warning, no real explanation. One day you can access your money. The next day you can't. Your card stops working. Your transfers get blocked. Your business can't process payments. And in a world that's going cashless, that's not a small problem. That's survival. This debanking is already happening. Take a look at this clip.
Hi, good afternoon, Jackie. After that hearing yesterday, Senate Democrats, they are looking to infuse more cash into the federal government. They're looking for probes into top banks to find whistleblowers and potential debanking. On the other side, the Republicans, they're looking to outlaw this. They're looking to stop the practice, they say, of debanking based on people's political beliefs. Now, this is a bipartisan issue, as you can see from that hearing yesterday. Senate Democrats and Republicans calling out these woke banks, but for different reasons. The Democrats say they're hurting the little guy, like minority communities, and Republicans accuse them of banning certain sectors like oil and gas and firearms customers. Ranking member Democratic Senator Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada is pushing legislation to beef up the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to investigate claims of debanking, and yesterday she accused President Trump of working against millions of Americans on that front.
Because today, if you don't have access to the banking system, you can't function normally. You can't receive wages properly. You can't pay bills easily. You can't run a business. You're effectively locked out of the economic system. Now think about Revelation 13 and that no man might buy or sell. What is that, if not the ultimate form of debanking? Imagine a world where access to the financial system isn't cut off because of risk policy, but because you refused the mark. Not just one bank, every bank. Not just one platform, the entire global system. That's not inconvenience. That's control. This is where the conversation becomes uncomfortable, because there are influential groups, institutions, technocrats, billionaires, and global leaders openly discussing the need for unified digital identity frameworks, centralized payment rails, interoperable databases, and integrated public-private governance models. They speak about efficiency, about security, about inclusion, about sustainability. And on the surface, those goals sound reasonable. But Revelation 13 is not about chaos. It is about order, weaponized. It is about a system so organized that participation becomes dependent on alignment. Think about the level of control required. To stop someone from buying or selling, you must control identification, transaction processing, banking rails, retail access, employment systems, supply chains. You cannot enforce Revelation 13 with fragmented governments and disconnected economies. You need digital integration. You need interoperability. You need centralized oversight, or at least coordinated compliance. For centuries, that infrastructure did not exist. Now it does. Digital currencies are being tested by central banks across the world. These are not cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin that operate independently. These are state-issued digital currencies, programmable, traceable, capable of setting conditions. Imagine money that can be restricted to certain purchases. Imagine money that expires. Imagine money that can be frozen instantly. Imagine money that can be denied based on identity verification. None of this is theoretical. These capabilities are openly discussed in white papers and policy forums. Again, framed as tools for fraud prevention, tax compliance, economic stability, environmental goals, but tools do not determine morality. Those who control the tools do. And once the infrastructure exists, it does not require evil intent to become dangerous. It only requires alignment of power. This is why Revelation 13 should not be read casually. It describes something systemic. It describes a world where economic participation is conditional. Now, consider China. China's social credit system is often misunderstood, but at its core, it links behavior to access. Through a combination of surveillance technology, data tracking, and state enforcement mechanisms, individuals and companies can face restrictions for actions deemed non-compliant.
They're constantly monitored by facial recognition cameras that are able to instantly put a face to a name. Now, the Chinese are also ranked, given a mark out of a possible 950 points. A score in the 700s is considered good. Around the 500 mark is not. For now, the number is a sort of bank credit rating, keeping track of everyone's spending habits.
There have been documented cases where citizens were restricted from purchasing plane tickets or high-speed train tickets because of legal or financial violations. Businesses have been blacklisted. Digital systems have been used to enforce behavioral compliance.
The cinema names and shames people considered untrustworthy, plastering their details, even their addresses, across big screens.
It's a matter of principle. Those people have to be condemned.
Those people aren't honest, so they have to pay the price.
It's only right to pay your debts. You have to blacklist those that don't.
The Supreme Court has created a blacklist for so-called bad citizens, those whose ratings have dropped to zero. On it are companies, but also 23 million people to date.
That is not the mark of the beast. But it shows the level of control a government can have on people. Look at what's happening around the world. We now live in a time where behavior can be linked to access. In some countries, if you break certain rules, financial rules, legal rules, social rules, you can find yourself restricted, not thrown in prison, not publicly shamed, just quietly limited. You can't book certain travel. You can't access certain services. Your movement gets narrowed. That's not Revelation 13. But it shows something important. It shows that modern systems can connect identity to economic privilege. And once that link exists, it can be expanded. Facial recognition is growing. AI surveillance is expanding. Digital wallets are replacing physical cash. Biometric IDs are becoming normal. Artificial intelligence is what makes all of this scalable. In the past, even if a government wanted to monitor large populations, it would have required massive manpower. People would have had to manually review footage, check financial records, and track behavior. It would have been slow and limited. AI changes that completely. AI systems can process enormous amounts of data in seconds. They can scan faces in crowded places, match identities across databases, analyze spending patterns, and flag transactions automatically. They can detect what is considered unusual behavior without any human reviewing every case. Banks already use AI to monitor transactions for fraud. Governments use AI to detect tax irregularities and benefit abuse. Border systems use biometric AI for identity verification. Retail and security systems use AI-powered cameras. These systems are not futuristic, they are already operating. When AI is connected to digital identity and digital payment systems, it creates the possibility of automated enforcement. Decisions can be made instantly. Transactions can be paused or blocked automatically. Accounts can be flagged without human involvement. Again, this does not automatically mean something sinister. These systems are introduced for reasons that sound reasonable: reducing fraud, increasing security, improving efficiency, lowering costs. But the concern is not about individual use cases. It is about integration. When identity, banking, and surveillance are all linked through AI systems, participation in society becomes increasingly dependent on digital verification. If access to money, services, or employment requires passing through interconnected digital systems, then whoever governs those systems holds significant influence. Revelation 13 describes a time when buying and selling becomes conditional. AI is what makes conditional systems manageable at a global scale. Without automation, enforcing economic restrictions across billions of people would be nearly impossible. With automation, it becomes technically feasible. The issue is not that AI exists. The issue is how it is integrated into financial and identity infrastructure. Once systems are centralized and automated, enforcement does not require visible force. It can happen quietly through system rules and digital permissions. For most of history, the level of coordination described in Revelation 13 was unrealistic because the technology did not exist. Today, it does. That does not mean we assume the worst. It means we recognize that the barrier is no longer technological. It is structural and directional. And that is why paying attention matters. These systems are spreading globally, not because they're evil, but because they're efficient. Governments call it modernization. They call it security. They call it financial inclusion. And on the surface, that sounds reasonable. But here's the shift. When everything becomes digital, everything becomes conditional. Cash doesn't ask questions. Cash doesn't expire. Cash doesn't get remotely frozen. Digital systems can. In many countries, cash use has dropped dramatically. Some shops won't even accept it anymore. Payments are apps. Transfers are instant. Everything is tracked. Everything leaves a record. Convenience becomes normal. Normal becomes dependency. Dependency becomes unquestioned. And once a society depends fully on digital systems, the possibility of exclusion becomes real. Not because someone announces it, not because tyranny appears overnight, but because the infrastructure allows it. You don't need global control in a single moment. You just need gradual integration. Banking systems linking across borders, payment networks operating internationally, digital identity programs backed by multiple nations, data moving across continents in seconds. The world is more connected than it has ever been. That connection brings benefits. It also brings power. Because when systems are centralized, they can be controlled. And when they can be controlled, they can be enforced. Revelation 13 describes a time when buying and selling becomes conditional. For centuries, that sounded impossible. Now, it sounds technologically possible. That doesn't mean we panic. It means we pay attention. Because the issue isn't technology itself. The issue is who controls it and what conditions might one day be attached to it. And for the first time in human history, The level of control described in Revelation 13 no longer sounds unrealistic. It sounds achievable. That's not fear. That's awareness.